Hello and welcome back to the Josh Tills Coaching Podcast. Thank you for sticking with me for now 4 episodes now. Yeah, it seems kind of unreal that people would choose to listen to my voice or choose to watch me on camera for that kind of length of time, to be honest, talk about different subjects and topics within the health and fitness space. Yeah, it kind of boggles my mind, to be honest. But so if you've made it this far, maybe this is the first one you've ever watched, I don't know. You might be able to hear that there's some church bells going on in the background. I live quite close to a church. And unfortunately I have places to be, so I can't really be recording for too long anyway, but I wanted to get this one done, and there's going to be some church bells in the background. Hopefully with the power of editing and sort of like AI these days, I might be able to get rid of that background noise and it can just be solely focused on my voice. But yeah, it's Sunday morning. I haven't even released the last podcast that I did yet, and I'm already back recording a new one. Hopefully that tells you just how into these podcasts I really am and just how fun I find recording them. I never really expected myself to kind of enjoy making them, especially at this stage. You know, it's still early doors. Maybe there's a bit of a honeymoon period in terms of setting all of this up and sitting down talking to a microphone, but really enjoy it so far and want to kind of keep these coming at you thick and fast. I don't want to talk for too long today, so hopefully that's going to be like the fastest introduction that we've ever done. We're going to go back to 2 topics today. So I think on the first podcast we did sort of like 3 topics, and that was like a really long one. It was almost like 39 minutes, which I think is definitely longer than I want these podcasts to be, but let me know. You might kind of want me to continue talking for sort of like upwards of 40-45 minutes. But for me personally, I kind of think like the 20-25 mark is pretty good. Especially based on the fact that most people are probably listening to me at 1.2 or 1.5 speed anyway, because I know that I'm a bit of a waffler and you just want to get to the point. So with that said, we're going to go to 2 topics today. Hopefully that will kind of land us around about the 20 to 20 minute mark. But the first topic that I wanted to talk about today was the impact of exercise. One, is exercise really necessary to be healthy and for a sense of vitality? And then secondly, the impact on exercise. The impact of exercise, not the impact on exercise, the impact of exercise. And then the second thing that I want to talk about, is a little bit about DOMS, delayed onset muscle soreness. So that soreness that we feel after we go to the gym. And I want to talk a little bit about that because there's a lot of that sort of like no pain, no gain sort of thing that still runs all the way through the health and fitness industry, and sort of like if you're not feeling sore, you're doing something wrong, and that. So I sort of want to clear that up. You can probably tell where I'm going with that topic before I even get there. So going all the way back to topic number 1, talking about, is exercise really necessary for health and vitality? Honestly, I don't think that exercise is. I think activity is. I think that we are creatures of movement. We like to move. It's very hard for us to stay stationary, even though it's very nice to be comfortable on a sofa on a nice cold evening and stuff like that. But it's kind of very hard for us to be still. Even me in this chair, like I like to fidget and move about. Like we like movement. There's these kind of cliches of movement is medicine, motion is lotion, and sort of these cringy sayings that get thrown around. But we definitely are creatures of movement, and we like to move. Our body likes to be in motion, and so activity is definitely, I think, essential for health and vitality. I think you look at anyone who's been immobilized for quite some time, whether that's bedridden through sickness, or whether that's even like a broken bone that they've had to be immobilized, it doesn't feel too healthy, does it? Now obviously you could argue that and say, yeah, well, they were sick as well, or because they couldn't use that joint, but obviously that kind of speaks to the whole point of it, and there's sort of like a systemic thing happening around it. But I think you even look at people that go into like trials for cold and flu, and they'll immobilize these people and they'll keep them quite cooped up, and they might actually administer the flu to them, or they might administer a placebo, and they kind of see the impacts. And people that are just generally immobilized without being ill typically do report feeling worse still, whether that's placebo effect or not. So, but I definitely think that being active is essential for health and vitality. exercise is quite a formal thing, right? Like going to the gym and exercising, or playing a sport in a formal, organised fashion. Obviously, formal, as I said. But is that essentially necessary? I don't think it's necessary. I think it's for sure optional, but I do think it gives a lot back. I think there's the social element of going to the gym, being active, playing a sport, whether that's team or individual. I think that there is psychological in terms of overcoming barriers and sort of like doing something that you didn't think you can do. I think that adds a huge sense of that sort of dopamine that we get. That sort of runner's high and those endorphins that exercise gives us, and sort of pushing our body beyond what we thought it was capable of, or sometimes even the setbacks and the comebacks from that. So if we fail a lift, or we get beaten by a team, and then next year we come back and we beat that team, or in a couple of months we manage to lift that weight that we previously couldn't, like I kind of say to a lot of people, like, with incredible highs come incredible lows, and it's the same with like the inverse, right? Like with incredible lows come incredible highs. So when we have these things that set us back, whether it's an injury that we manage to come back from, whether it's a lift that we miss and then are able to hit another time, whether it's a team that beat us and we then are able to beat them, or in an individual sport sense, if it's someone who, I'll use Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, if someone taps us, or they keep getting us, like they keep catching us in certain positions or certain movements, and we are able to overcome that and then work around it, then that feels really fucking good. And I think there's a psychological component to that where exercise gives you so much back. So definitely not necessary, but I think in terms of value, really, really strong. And we should all be exercising for those other reasons beyond just the physical, what we get back from exercise in terms of being stronger, fitter, like actually being happier, more energized, being having a support network and a friendship circle that you do that thing with. And that hasn't always got to be exercise and sport. It might be other hobbies, it might be movies, it might be like crafts, it might be anything, right? But I think definitely being engaged in something that kind of gives us a support network. And I think for a lot of people, exercise can be that, whether it's an exercise class, seeing the same people at a gym, going to a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu club and seeing the same faces regularly, and having conversations if it's part of a team, having those triumphs and struggles as part of a team, really, really valuable. So I'll always kind of sing from that hymn sheet that no, like exercise isn't necessary. I think people can be healthy, and there are plenty of people that are healthy without being exercisers. But I do think that there is a lot of value that we get back from exercising, for sure. So there's that difference between activity and exercise in my brain, and in terms of how I present it. I think we naturally all have a want to be active. And there's like those elements of going outside and touching some grass, like being outside in nature sometimes, going on a walk, on a hike or a dog walk or whatever it might be, gives us so much back. And sometimes when we're just in our little den, in our house or in our flats or whatever it might be, and we're kind of cooped up there, we can kind of feel zapped of energy. I know I've had those times where I've spent all day indoors and I haven't really done anything, and yet I feel more tired. And so I think that we can then come into a bit of a things that sustain you and things that drain you. And sometimes the things that can drain you can also sustain you. And I think something that a lot of people can probably attest to is sometimes family in that sense, right? Like sometimes being around your family can drain you, depending on who you've got in your family and certain personalities and their certain foibles. I think I'm using that word in the correct sense. That's one thing about podcasting. When I listen to them back, I'm now so aware of words that I mispronounce and using the wrong word for a certain context. I cringe at myself listening to these back because I'm just constantly aware of it now. But yeah, people's foibles, I'm pretty sure I'm using that in the right context, but if I'm not, hopefully you know what I mean. But family can also sustain us, right? And like they can give us energy, and we have a lot of laughs, and kind of we kind of have tolerance for people and acceptance of the people in our immediate circle. That's always a really good thing about family. And I think that you're right there, Toad. Toad's having a little cough. I think that that's one thing about exercise as well, is that while it can drain us because it is a physical exertion, an expression of physical exertion, it can equally sustain us and give us more energy back. One, because of the adaptations that happen where we become more tolerant to physical exercise, but also just because of those endorphins, the psychological benefits, the social benefits, general health and systemic benefits from that. So that's part of the first topic. The second topic that I sort of wanted to branch off into was the impact of exercise. And this is something that I'll always say to my clients, is that when I program them a workout or I go through a one-to-one session with them, they typically are about an hour in length. I try not to go over an hour and a half, especially not regularly. I think most people are very busy and lead very busy lives. I think for busy people, the kind of 45 minutes to an hour's worth in length is plenty. And it's kind of enough time that they can carve out of their day, but equally enough time in the gym to really feel like they can get into the meat and potatoes of the workout that they want to do. So what I will always say to people is, in that hour, if I spend an hour with someone, or if I program an hour's workout, that 1 hour is only 4% of your day. Yeah. And so the results and the adaptations don't happen in the 4%. The adaptations happen in the other 96% of your day. The choices that you're making, the amount of sleep you're getting, the amount of recovery you're getting, the amount of stress we're exposed to. We did a whole thing on stress for episode 3. All of those things become relevant. Yeah. Very rarely do the adaptations that we want take place in that hour's workout, that 4% of your day. So why is exercise so impactful in that case? Why does it give us so much value? Well, because of the quality of that 4%, right? So sometimes doing an hour's workout might force us to make better food choices. It might make us more aware of our body in terms of coordination and timing and what moves from where and what hurts. And that might enable us to get better sleep because we're a bit more tired, and then we get better recovery and we feel a bit better. We equally, hopefully in the long term, we are more aware of what we want to achieve because we are focusing our attention on it. And so it gives us a lot of impact back. So it has a big impact, even though quantitatively it's only 4% of your day that you're giving up. And I think that this is always a really nice way to sort of express to people how much you can get out of so little, right? So like, if you can give me 4% of your day in 1 hour of workout, we can have a drastically big impact on the remaining 96. I'm going to say that again because I'm probably going to clip it and use it in social media. Selfishly, I'm going to say it again. Oh no, fucked it. I forgot what I was going to say. So now I'm going to butcher it. Fuck's sake. As I said on the third one, I hate my brain sometimes. Right, I think I got it. We're going to go. I now got to try and say it seriously. Right, so if you can give me 4% of your day in an hour's workout, then we can have a huge impact on the remaining 96% of the day. We crushed it. We got the social media clip. We're moving on. No further questions, Your Honour. So that's pretty much like the essence of what I will talk to people about and kind of where we'll go on that conversation. It's just how that hour's workout is 4% of your day. Can you give me 4% of your day in an hour's workout, and the impacts that has on the remaining 96? It's a fairly easy to understand concept, but I think it can be quite powerful in changing people's approaches to working out, because we can appreciate the other impacts that we get of it. If we get better sleep, if we feel better, if we're more aware of the food choices that we're making, if we're more aware of what's hurting and maybe where we are using our body in certain contexts and certain situations, hugely impactful. The second topic that I wanted to come on to was all about muscle soreness, or DOMS as it's scientifically referred to. DOMS stands for delayed onset muscle soreness. So we all know this feeling of when we've done a big workout. It's not necessarily even a huge workout. It might be more activity than we are used to. If we are used to walking on flat ground and then we go to the Lake District and we do some hikes on some steep inclines, then we might wake up with a bit of muscle soreness the next day. If we are only used to doing 4,000 steps in a day and we have a big day where we do 17,000 steps, you might feel sore. And we all probably know this feeling, whether it is directly from the gym where we have done something new or we have started an exercise regime, and then the next day or the next 72 hours or even sometimes further in some cases, we feel incredibly sore. And one of the things that gets thrown around a lot is this kind of view, and it still is thrown around a lot, is no pain, no gain. And so that the soreness is an indicator of us doing good work and of our sessions or our activity being a good thing. Now, is it? There is no research to suggest that more soreness equals more effectiveness in terms of the quality of our workout and what we manage to get done in terms of a workout setting. So that would, because there's no research, we could immediately go, well, muscle soreness means nothing, we should never be sore. And I'm not going to be so quick to go to that thing. What I will typically say to people is, if you are never sore, you're probably doing something wrong. But if you are always sore, then you're probably doing something wrong. The main elements of soreness, typically with beginners, it's mainly due to a novel stimulus. So something that new that we are introducing. So when we are a beginner to the gym or to working out in any sense, it is new to us. When we go from doing 4,000 steps in a day to 17,000 steps all of a sudden, maybe you just have one big day and you feel sore after it, it's because we are not tolerant to doing that amount. When we start doing a new exercise or a new workout program, a lot of those exercises we are not used to doing. We are not used to using our muscles in that way. And so there is a lot of muscle damage that comes with that. And so everything feels very, very sore after it. The day after, we have a lot of soreness. As we get more tolerant and as we continue to go to the gym, or we continue to do 17,000 steps, or we continue to live in a hilly area like the Lake District where we are making the most of the beautiful scenery and doing challenging hikes, we get more tolerant to it. And so it is not a novel stimulus anymore. And as such, we do not feel delayed onset muscle soreness because our body has adapted and it is used to it. Now, this is where the argument comes in is, well, if we can keep adapting, then we don't feel sore. And yeah, 100%. But as I said, if we're never feeling sore, from a workout perspective, right? We sometimes want to feel soreness because it can be an indication that, that's a new stimulus. We're doing something in a slightly new way. Maybe we're slightly changing our form on an exercise, or maybe we're changing into a new mesocycle, a new phase of training where we are changing the exercises and they are new to us because we haven't done them in so long that now we feel sore. Or maybe we are pushing to an intensity where we haven't gone to for quite a long time and muscle soreness is feeding into that. So if we're always feeling sore, doing something wrong. If we're never feeling sore, probably doing something wrong. And there is a bit of a sweet spot for how much soreness. If we are feeling sore and it is impacting our ability to work out because we're so sore, we know that if we train a muscle part while it's sore, we don't get any real benefits from that because of the muscle damage and kind of any increases in muscle protein synthesis is probably going to help with the clearing of information and the clean-up job of any muscle that is damaged as opposed to growing new tissue. So I would typically try to be intelligent with exercise programming so that we aren't working a body part too close together while it's still sore. And equally, this is another big thing with programming is that I see a lot of people go into the gym and kind of just doing what they feel. And it's different exercises every time. And this will probably feed into muscle soreness. Because you're not following a program, you've always got a novel stimulus from some exercise that you didn't do last week or the time before or the time before that or 2 weeks ago. It's always novel stimulus. And the reason why we become adapted to it, there's a mechanism which is called the repeated bout effect, RBE for short. And the repeated bout effect is effectively when we administer repeated bouts of the same thing, our body adapts to it. There's another mechanism which is called SAID, the SAID principle. And the SAID principle pretty much says that we have the ability to specifically adapt to any imposed demand. Specific adaptation to imposed demand is the SAID principle. So if we impose the demand of lifting weights, then our body will specifically adapt to lifting weights. And that is a very specific adaptation. So if it's I'm going to do leg press and I'm going to get as strong as I can on the leg press, if I do a lot of leg press and I impose the demand of a lot of leg pressing, then my body's going to go, we seem to be doing a lot of leg pressing. We should probably adapt so that we can facilitate and we can do a lot of leg pressing. Does that make sense? Hopefully that's a fairly quick episode. Hopefully I've not rambled on for too long. I just kind of wanted to go into 2 quick and easy topics that I thought would serve as a little bit of myth busting in certain areas and stuff like that. There was actually a reel that came out, just going back to topic 1 because I'm a scatterbrain. I think it's James Smith, PT, for anyone who follows him. Massive fitness influencer. I wouldn't even call him an influencer. He's a PT coach in the industry, but he's got a massive following. He's done really well out of online coaching and stuff. He put out a reel which was pretty much like talking about how exercise is such a small percentage of your day and actually focusing on being active, like your non-exercise activity thermogenesis, NEAT for short, non-exercise activity, going for a walk and taking the stairs instead of an escalator, parking a bit further away in a car park, leads to better results from a fat loss perspective. And while I agree, yeah, that's definitely what the research says, like NEAT accounts for about 15%, 20%, about 15-20%, depending on the person, of your daily energy expenditure. And exercise only might really account for 5%. But then I go back to, well, the quality of that 5%, the impact that 5% has. Yes, over a macro period of time, taking the stairs instead of an escalator, parking a bit further away and getting more steps in, playing with your kids a bit more, even though it's not exercise, we are being more active, leads to burning more calories from a weight loss perspective. I think that we don't always then feed that back into making healthier food choices or being aware of what our body's doing in different capacities and stuff like that. So I am a big advocate for exercise in that sense because I think it gives us so much back in terms of the impact, and the value that it adds. Even though it's only 5% of the calories we might burn in a day, the value that 5% adds back to all the other areas is huge. Maybe we choose a more protein-based meal because, one, we know it's going to help with the recovery aspects, even though carbohydrates is more important for recovery from a workout immediately. But in terms of protein from a fullness, and I always butcher this word, the satiousness, I'm not even sure if it's a real word, I know, the satiety, I think is how you pronounce it, how full we feel. Protein's huge for that, and equally it has a thermic effect where we net take on less calories out of more protein than we do for carbs and fats. We're getting into different topics here. I can always cover those in different ones if that's something that you want. But I do think that because we exercise, we might go, protein's important because I'm exercising, let me eat more protein. Let me see if I can include more veggies for micronutrients and stuff like that. Let me see if I can, like, now I do feel fit enough to park a bit further away to take the stairs. Like, all of those things now become relevant. Yeah, so I don't want to go on for too long. That's been it for today. That's episode 4 in the books. Done, ticked off. Thank you very much. And I'm hoping to have a guest on this week. I'm hoping for every fifth. I don't want to overcommit myself, but I'm hoping that every I'm hoping that every 5th episode we'll have a guest on, and then I'm hoping maybe every 25th episode maybe I'll do a Q&A where I'll just open up the floor to you can ask me a question on Twitter, Threads, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, wherever. You can ask me some questions and I will go through them and I'll answer them. So if there's anything specifically that you want to learn about or you want my insights on, I can give you them. Sometimes it might be that I need a bit more context, but I'm more than happy to either ask for that context back for you specifically or just say in the podcast, I wouldn't really answer that on a podcast because I need more context. Like, is what it is. But I'd love to do some question and answer type things as well as just regularly having some guests on. That would be awesome. So yeah, this is episode 4. Hopefully episode 5 we're gonna have a guest on. That'd be great if we could. Just need to really kind of put the nail in the coffin in terms of putting a date in the diary. And then we can have that. But again, thank you so much for tuning in and listening to my podcast, to my voice, and watching on a camera if you're watching on YouTube or Spotify. For some reason, the video feed doesn't feed through to Apple Podcasts. I'm not sure if I would have to upload it separately. That's a point for me to research. But because I think potentially if you're on Apple Podcasts, you might want to see my face in my living room again. Even though you're not really missing much, it is just literally my living room and one corner of my living room right by the window, because my flat is a cave. And it's also a mess over there. Super messy. The majority of you probably won't care about that. I'm waffling because I'm doing an outro. What's wrong with me? Thanks so much for tuning in. Hope you have a good day if it's morning. And I hope you have a good evening if it's the evening. Thanks so much, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.